Victoria Pacho is a student at Green River Community College, a committed activist, a lesbian, a Chicana, and an amazing friend of mine. I spoke to her about her experiences surrounding her queer and Chicana identities.
I feel that being a queer Chicana is very unique. There are struggles that we face because of our culture differences. Whereas a white person who is queer, that's one layer of oppression for them. For me, being a lesbian is an added layer, it's an additional layer, so it comes with some weight. There's more bricks on my chest that I'm trying to breathe under. Being gay interacts less with like being a woman or being a person of color. People don't necessarily know that I am gay. They can rationalize my appearance however they want to. I get to control the various degrees in which I'm out, or how my appearances will mark me as gay or not gay, feminine or masculine. But when it comes to being a woman and it comes to being a brown person, I don't get any control. I can't control how dark or light somebody sees me.
Listening to Victoria speak, I'm constantly reminded of Gloria Anzaldua's writings about the mestiza consciousness. She writes, quote, "The mestiza learns to be an Indian and Mexican culture, to be Mexican from an Anglo point of view. She learns to juggle cultures." I see this in how Victoria conceptualizes her relationship with both her queer identity and her Chicana identity. In Borderlands, Gloria Anzaldua emphasizes how being queer and being Chicana are both individually middle grounds in one way or another. But what Victoria adds here is that being both of these is a middle ground as well. That being any more than one identity exists as a middle ground, as a mestiza. There's a constant flow from one identity to another depending on the situation and the context and the people surrounding you. And with all of these intersections and identities, it's very easy to get bogged down by society and what it's telling you.
Hating myself, the shame, this was all part of social grooming. It was all, negative stimulus to try to get me to conform.
So for Victoria, something that really helped combat this pressure, this societal pressure, was poetry, especially Maya Angelou's Still I Rise.
This one means a lot to me because it reminds me that some people might be angry with me or hate me because I have diamonds between my thighs or oil wells in my living room. So all these points of oppression or these things that people hate about me, being gay, being a person of color, they're not anything bad. They're actually strength and gold mines.
Victoria's words to me are a beautiful manifestation of Audre Lorde's "Poetry is not a luxury." For those suffering under violent oppression, poetry is a physical manifestation of their experiences. Poetry is a necessity, a coping mechanism, an inevitability.
I think one of the other things that is out of the narrative is our history. Sometimes I can feel like we're one of the first generations to exist, this POC LGBTQ, and that's not the truth. So when we look into these movements, or we watch Harvey Milk, or we watch Vito, or we watch The Plague, all these movies, they're predominantly white audiences, and more specifically white-dominated male audiences. Movies about Stonewall. So there's not very much about our history included in the narrative.
In my life, I work very hard to create spaces, physical or metaphorical, where queer and trans people can be open and accepted and comfortable. However, I often worry about the limitations of my own personal experiences and knowledge, and also the experiences and knowledge of my fellow white queer people. What is being left out when it is our voices only leading? What is being left out when it is only our voices leading?
We need to make sure that our clubs and orgs are not white dominated, that we're actually marketing and making posters specifically to reach LGBTQ of color. Because if you look around, I'm sure even on your campus, it's a white dominated space, and maybe intersectionality is not at the center of it.
So how do we support those who are marginalized within our communities? How can we fight against the temptation to create one overarching narrative and shun those who do not fit?
How is this other and separate and different? And just because somebody is gay doesn't mean they're not racist. We need to support our community color. If you don't give a flower water, it's not going to grow, or if it's missing the sunshine, or if it's missing any part that it needs for its growth, then it will suffer. It'll be less vibrant, or it won't survive at all. We are in some deep water. You know, it's dangerous for us to come out, and not in the same way that it's dangerous for a white person to come out. It puts an additional target on our back. It fuels more hate from others that was already there. It takes some already, hot water, and it boils it.
In this time of intense need, what the queer community needs to do is to be there for those who are pushed away. We need to commit to protecting the most threatened and the most vulnerable. This year alone, there have been 7 high-profile murders of trans women of color, and probably numerous others that have gone unreported. Let's start by acknowledging that, by saying their names. Misha Caldwell, Jamie Lee Wounded Arrow, Jojo Stryker, Jaquarius Holland, Kiki Collier, China Doll Dupree, Ciara McElveen. This is a time for action, but it is also a time for learning. I'm reminded of Cherry Moraga's This Benighted Nation We Call Home and her discussion of rights movements of the 1970s. Where did they go? One explanation she offers is that they failed to see the entire picture. Many black rights organizations, for instance, ignored the concerns of women within their groups, and almost all civil rights organizers lacked an understanding of the economics and class structures surrounding their situations. That is why they faded away. But we can learn from this history. We can spend our time listening and learning and centering those most in need. I want to leave you with a story from Victoria about the beauty of community and one small glimpse of a community that she found.
There was this Latin club, and it was gay, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like a sea of brown people, all gay and happy and supportive of each other and hugging each other and having that familia sense, in the friendship and this camaraderie where I finally felt like my arms were linked with theirs, and if I fell, I would never slip.
This story featured analysis and quotes from Borderlands by Gloria Anzaldúa, Poetry is Not a Luxury by Audre Lorde, and This Benighted Nation We Call Home by Cherry Moraga. Most of all, I want to thank Victoria for her insight and wise words, and for helping me out with this podcast.